Gentlemen, are you ready? Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for coming out on this fine day and joining us for a community meeting. Volume? Okay. How are we doing now? All right. I don't want to blow people out. My name is Andy Lyon. I'm an information officer with Pacific Northwest Team 2, and I'm going to be your facilitator. We have, as you can see, a lineup of folks to give you updates about the 4 fires that Pacific Northwest Team 2 is managing. We would like to have streamed this live on Facebook, but the internet, we have internet issues. We can't do that. We are taping it, and we will be bringing that. We will be putting on Facebook for both the Bedrock and Lookout fires later this evening. So you can tell your neighbors who weren't able to be here that they can catch the stream later on. I'd like to, we'll have time at the end for questions and answers. We have our smoke air quality advisors over here to take questions if there's questions about smoke, and we will hang out a little bit after the presentation if you have further questions that don't get addressed or you don't want to ask using the microphone. We'll be happy to do that. Also want to thank the Mackenzie High School folks for allowing us to use this fine facility. Really appreciate having a place to do this, and one with air conditioning. We're not used to that. I'm not used to that. And also want to thank the Mackenzie Fire Department for use of their facility for our daily cooperator meetings. So thank you very much, and we will get started with your Linn County Sheriff, Cliff Harold.
Thanks, Andy. Good evening, folks. This is our 4th community meeting on this, and I've been here each time. In the community meetings in the past, I did a little bit of talking about how the evacuation process and the evaluation of that goes in coordination with the fire professionals. I'm not going to go over that again tonight because I see mostly familiar faces, but if anybody watches this later and didn't watch before, it's still on their page, so you can go back and watch, and we go in a little more in depth about that process. I think really just what I want to emphasize now is that while different IMTs come in and then they get their break and go out, the process remains the same. My office stays in touch with the same positions in each IMT. We get the same information. It's a different fire behavior analyst. It's a different operations chief that's talking to us, but the communication's consistent. It's really good. They're constantly in communication with us to give us the best information so that we can make those decisions for the community on evacuation zones. And then the only other thing I'll address is the newest thing, right, which was the 126 closure today. John Porter is the local ODOT manager. I've probably talked to him no less than 12 times today. He's a fantastic individual to work with. And we really didn't want to close the highway if we didn't have to. But ultimately, when the fire crossed over to the other side, it was pretty close to the highway. And they were trying to use their air support to drop water on it. When you drop water on things, sometimes things end up out on the highway. We didn't want any of that to occur for the safety of the motoring public. So the highway is continuing to be closed until such time as the information is that it would be safe, not just from fire, but from the results of the fire being there, timber that might fall on the highway, etc. So they'll take a look at that. Of course, the state is motivated to get that highway open as soon as they can. We're coming up on Labor Day weekend. So they'll continue to be in touch with the fire professionals with respect to getting the highway back open, but it's an unknown time frame at this point. With respect to evacuation zones, we didn't make any meaningful change today. There was one little section that went from yellow to red, but the reality is those areas, we communicated with them consistently over the last couple of weeks, Belknap Springs and Paradise Campground, which of course has been empty. So the map changed a little bit, but ultimately not a significant change because the affected parties had been communicated with for the last couple of weeks. And then as far as Linn County goes, they're consistently plugged in with us so that they can make decisions for their county. They've got a representative that shows up daily for those meetings, And so they're also getting all the same information, and they haven't had to make any adjustments at this point, other than the highway closure impacted some of their camps, which are staying open. And so Linn County Parks is working through that process. If people have reservations in there that they're still able to go to, they're working through how to get them down the highway. So they've got a process in place for that. I'll leave it at that, but of course I'll be around later for any conversations anybody wants to have with me.
And I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that we have County Commissioner Heather Buck from District 5. Thank you very much for joining us. And we did invite our partners from Linn County to be here and speak if they would like to, but thankfully nothing much has changed up there, and your sheriff spoke for them. So next is Dirk Rogers from Upper Mackenzie Fire.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I just want to say, whether you all know it or not, the sheriff has been working every day that I know of since this fire has started, not taking any days off. So I think that's a huge testament from the sheriff on this, just so you all know. I did take a few days off from the fire. As you all know, I do work for the Forest Service as well. But in the spirit of things with Rainbow, she's been working so much as well, and she needed a few days off, so I'm filling in for her right now. But I do want you guys and gals to know that Upper Mackenzie, all of us have been in great communications with the team, Pacific Northwest Team 2, making sure everything is in place that we need to have in place out there to protect the families, the structures, and the stuff that is important to this community. So with that, we'll continue to work with them. Right now, the fire is up behind Belknap. We have a little bit more of an interest up there as this thing keeps moving on up the highway. And then we also have the E-Web facility that we are responsible for. So we're working with them, keeping in touch, and we'll continue to do that. So that's all I got to say. Appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Sonny Caldwell. I'm Operations Section Chief with PNW2, and I'm going to give you kind of a broad overview of all 4 of the fires that we're managing. I'll speak in kind of general terms because I know it's hard to see the map here, but I will be around afterwards for if you want specific questions answered. So let's go ahead and start with the Bedrock incident, if we can zoom in on that a little bit. So the most of the, I think we were showing 81% containment on this fire, so that's a really good sign. We got a lot of good work done there. We have a good, strong containment line all around this fire that we feel very comfortable with. Most of the operation consists of patrolling and monitoring with just a little bit of mop-up left on the west side, which is a really good sign. And then mostly the east side, kind of if you just cut the fire in half, most of the east side we're in fire repair mode, so that's another really good sign. That shows where the fire's at. But just want to rest everyone assured that we are fully staffed on that fire still, and we are monitoring everything out there, and we're working for that 100% containment. You're seeing increases every day out there with what we're doing. And I think the fact that we can say that, yeah, we're mostly in a patrol and monitor status is a really good sign on that incident. Let's go ahead and move to the Lookout Fire. I'm going to start up here in Division Alpha, kind of in this northwest, and then I'll work myself around the fire. So Division Alpha, you see the marks there on the west side of this fire that go up. We've fired all that off up to that 10. I know that's really hard to see, but I'll kind of point out it there. So we got black up to our line all the way up to DP10, which is a good sign. And then kind of this whole northwestern section around to where it comes back to the highway over there is indirect strategy. So we've been out there with a whole bunch of machines, chippers, masticators, dozers, etc., really getting in those roads ready for a future firing operation when the conditions are right. As we come around on the east side of the incident over there, you'll see that we're pretty close to the highway there. We've been bringing fire down our primary line there. And then last night, where we ended is what created the spot fires that you probably all heard about today. So this morning, when the sun came up, we discovered what turns out to be 3 spot fires, kind of near where we call it the branch break, and then you see the binoculars just under what we call the branch break. But there were 3 spot fires, 2 of which were about 1 to 2 acres. We were able to respond right away with helicopters, a lot of crews and resources there. We got lines around all those fires, hose lay into them, and we're filling in a comfortable spot there. I anticipate us being able to open the highway this evening, so I think we made really good progress. As you can tell, if you look outside, the air was a lot clearer today, which, you know, one, it's kind of a negative thing because the fire tends to burn better, but two, we can fly our aircraft, which is a huge tool for us to be able to use that we haven't been able to use a whole lot on these incidents. As we continue down, you'll see the line pretty much runs north-south, and then there's a little bit of space in between on this kind of southeast corner between the fire's edge and where our primary line is. Our intention is to fire that out and have a good solid fire next to our line, which is the safest way to hold that. And we're hoping to have that window of opportunity over the next day or two. And as you come around the south there, most of those lines have been in for the last week or so, so a lot of mop-ups going on there, a lot of emphasis. I know there's a handful of homes and the river and the highway there, so a lot of emphasis there and making sure that's good and secure, but that hasn't moved since we've been here, so that's a good sign, and we have a lot of resources in there doing a lot of hard work to make sure that remains the case. Let's go ahead and move down to the Horse Creek Fire. Okay, so the Horse Creek Fire started a few days, well, I guess probably 4 or 5 days ago now, I'm sure as you're all aware. And initially our efforts were to keep the western edge, and we've done that. We've kept the western edge, and the fire's been skirting along to the east, kind of the same direction as Horse Creek comes from, right? So right now we're keeping the fire north of the Horse Creek Road. Originally we were going to try to keep it north of the creek, but it got across there, and so our efforts will kind of focus more towards utilizing the road as our primary containment line. And then you'll see all of the little hash marks, that's dozer lines. So we're looking to bring dozer lines out to the east, and then we're gonna bring another line right down to the creek. So eventually that fire footprint is gonna be a little bit bigger, but we're steering it away from we're steering away from the Foley Springs area, and I realize Yale Camp's up there and some other things to the east, but we feel pretty comfortable the direction we're going, and the intention there is to get it pinched down into the creek there and have good control lines with black edges, which is, again, the safest way to hold a fire. And then let's move to the pothole incident. Oh, good, this map has the roads on it. So the pothole incident, we have a whole bunch of resources out there, masticators, hand crews, dozers, et cetera, and we're going direct on this fire. It's allowing us to do it out there with this country. So we have direct line around the majority of this fire. This fire hasn't moved a lot since we've been taking action on it, and we don't anticipate it moving a lot. So a lot of effort is being put right on the fire's edge, and I think within the next few shifts, we're going to be all the way around it in a really good spot on that incident. And that will conclude the update for those fires. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kurt Van Spybrook, the incident meteorologist, and I'm here to talk to you about the weather. So I was wondering what I was going to say. I'm going to be Captain Obvious at the beginning of this and then lead you into the forecast. So we got into this situation because it's been excessively hot. We've had all the heat warnings and things like that we had earlier this summer, and that caused the fuels to dry out. We're also battling a severe to almost extreme drought condition with the lack of water and the excessive heat. So that brings us to where we are today. The fuels are very, very dry. They were actually reaching their record dryness component, and so all the fuels are available to burn, and that's in this general area. That's a really bad thing because you're used to getting about 58 inches of rain every year, and you haven't had rain for 6 weeks. So today we had a nice gentle day, but yesterday was really nice with that first push of the onshore flow, and the upper low swung through here, gave us just a little bit of rain, and as Sonny said, it kind of knocked behavior down, but then it brought in some clear air. It's a fairly mild day, and that's a good thing. The good news is, as we move forward, if you've been following the weather, there is what I like to call a parade of low pressure systems just lined up in the Pacific, ready to come on shore every couple of days. So if you've been praying for rain and you're looking forward to it, I think tomorrow is your day, because we've got rain in the forecast, and it looks like it could be very wet. We're looking at anywhere between 1/4 to 1/2 inch in the next 24 to 36 hours. That is excellent news for putting a dent in what we're dealing with. The good news is there's several systems behind it ready to come through periodically, and that's really what we need to get you all back to a better state, because that steady, consistent rainfall every couple of days with a couple of sunny days in between, so you don't forget there's a sun out there. That's what we need to get those fuels moist. We need to put steady, consistent water on those fuels to get them back to a place where they're not so dangerous. And it looks like the pattern of the excessive heat has broken, and now we're getting back into more of the seasonal pattern where you'll start to see low pressure systems, onshore flow, get us through September and hopefully to October without any more big events. So my number, Andy has my number. I may have to duck out early because I have to brief the crews later. So if you have any weather questions or you want to know anything specific, you can always contact the incident meteorologist through the public information officers. Thanks and have a good night.
Hey, good afternoon, folks. My name is Brian Anderson. I'm agency administrator for the Willamette National Forest. And on behalf of the two district rangers that have fires on their districts, Darren Cross at the McKenzie District and Molly Julerat up in the Middle Fork District, just want to express our appreciation for you guys coming out to this meeting to learn about these fires. And really the intent is for you to be able to ask some questions and interact with the team and the forest and the ICs. So thanks for being here. This team's done a fantastic job of working on all four fires. You know, they got here and worked on the Bedrock Fire and transitioned to take on the Lookout Fire. I don't think we're expecting to get another 2 fires added onto that. And so they've put up a tremendous effort to keep these fires small, and that's what we asked them to do, is to put them out as small as they could. They've had some challenges from the weather and the fuels, but they've done a great job. And really the heroes in that story are the 1,600 or so firefighters on the ground that have been out there every day, you know, putting in lines and really working their tails off. So, you know, those folks do a fantastic job, and I know you all appreciate the work that they're engaged in. You know, there's a lot of things to protect out there. There's a lot of private land, homes, infrastructure, and so the forest is taking that very seriously, working with the team, working with our cooperators to try and have a good outcome for everybody as we wrap these fires up and hopefully turn the corner on Lookout and Horse Creek and Pothole like we're starting to do with the Bedrock Fire. So again, thanks for coming out. I'm going to turn it over now to Dave Warnack, the forest supervisor, for just a couple of messages.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for coming over to help the Willamette National Forest. So Brian Anderson actually lives in Joseph, Oregon, and works for the Wallowa-Whitman National Forest, and came over for the past 2 weeks to help us manage the series of fires here on the Willamette. Because we've had a lot of them, right? And there's only so many of us to go around, and so he came to help, and it was value added. Thank you. Yeah. So it's been a pretty intense week on the Willamette since the lightning came through last Thursday. We've had wide-scale initial attack across the forest and all of the adjacent jurisdictions, state land, private land, BLM, and the Siuslaw and the Umpqua National Forests all received that same bit of lightning that we did. So we've had people engaged in pretty intense initial attacks since then. I'd really like to thank our local resources for all of the work we've gotten around most of those fires. I'd like to thank P&W Team 2 for being nimble and responsive and being open to take the Horse Creek and the Pothole Fire under their jurisdiction, and for your continued focus on the Bedrock Fire. Those are all really important parts of this system because it's not even September 1st, right? And I think that's my take home for today, is it's not even September yet. So we've got a long way to go. I appreciate hearing about the moderating weather coming through, but I still think that between now and more reliable seasonal rains, that we can expect for our current lines to be tested, right? We will get another 7 to 10 days of fire weather that is going to test us, right? And it's my intent to be ready for that. and I think it's an intent that we all share. So with all that additional fire activity that's happened over the last 4 or 5 days, I do want to let you know that the lookout in Horse Creek and Pothole remain clearly our focus and chief concern. And that's because of the values that are at risk with these fires and the relative situation with this fire. Bedrock is looking a lot better, and that was due to a lot of really strategic and critical work in there. And we have some other fires on the landscape that are looking better through this weather as well. But Lookout, Horse Creek, and Pothole remain clearly in our focus, and I think we'll see some progress there, continued progress there over the next week or so. At the same time, I'd like to talk to you more as your forest supervisor and let you know that the emergency doesn't stop when the smoke goes away, right? We have learned a lot since 2020. We've learned that recovery takes time, and it's our intent on the Willamette to kind of shorten that timeline for recovery on the National Forest. We've learned a lot about how important access is to the National Forest, for recreation, for outfitters and guides, for the economy, right? And so we are focused on that. Our intent is to be really nimble and responsive to things such as changes in closure orders or public use restrictions to ensure that people can get on with their lives and enjoy and benefit from the National Forest as soon as it's safe to do so. The final thing I'd like to share today is that we're approaching Labor Day, right? And that's going to bring a lot of things up for a lot of us. And I respect and honor that, right? At the same time, I also recognize that we're going to have over 1,000 people that are working through Labor Day, that are away from their families, away from their friends, and they're invested in this work to support and protect these communities. On Labor Day this year, I'll be thinking about them. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Maybe Allison will tell me if you can't. My name is Mike Caffaretta with the Oregon Department of Forestry. Also with me is Allison Rayburn. She's also with the Oregon Department of Forestry, and we're here helping on these 4 incidents that the fire team has taken. And I just wanted to say a few things about this. And one thing is, these fire teams, this is the 3rd one, I think, in place. There'll be a 4th one coming in Saturday. But my coworkers at the Forest Service and the Department of Forestry, we've given them consistent messages. Fight fire safely, but be aggressive, protect the communities, protect the disruption, minimize damage to the lands. And so we think they've done that. We appreciate the work they've done, and we've worked hard with them to support that. So we continue to do that. And the next team will be here helping the next team be successful and help them protect your communities and try and get things opened up as fast as we can. I want to talk about the future a little bit, about what we hope happens here. We hope that fire team continues this work and puts this fire to bed as quickly as they can. It looks really positive. We've got a nice stretch of weather. We hope they get the lines tight. We hope the fire goes out. You should see people up doing what we call suppression repair. So that would be putting in water bars to protect natural resources, closing roads that have been open once we don't need them anymore. You see a lot of work going on even after the smoke clears as we finish up cleaning up after the fires. And then after that, those of you in private lands who have your lands burned, the Oregon Department of Forestry, we're here to help you put those back together. So that would be, how do we deal with any logs that are burned? That would be the reforestation that has to happen. If you have questions about site preparation, Allison and I can take your name and number and help you get that process started with the local district representatives. I wish you weren't in that spot, but we are. And so, I think if you play this out, the fire will go out, we will do suppression repair, we'll clean up the landscape, and then we'll help you put it back together again. So with that, that's all I have to say, but we'll be around afterwards and help anybody we can. Thank you.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First off, really thank you for being here and taking some time out on a Friday night. I know this is very important to the communities here. My name is Jason Loomis. I'm the Incident Commander for Pacific Northwest Team 2. And, you know, I just want to share a few things that haven't already been shared and just give you a perspective from an Incident Commander. You know, when we took command of initially the Bedrock Fire, it was very apparent that there was alignment between the Oregon Department of Forestry, the Bureau of Land Management, and the Forest Service. All agency administrators and representatives were at the table each and every day talking about what those values were. Northwest Team 13 and Northwest Team 12 had the Bedrock Fire prior to us. And they really did an excellent job of setting us up as an incoming team for success. And we carried on that strategy. But that strategy doesn't happen without real good, solid leaders' intent. And so I know sometimes the public agencies take a little bit of criticism for having conflicting messages. That has not been the case here. So really appreciate the diligence and the alignment from the agencies. It really makes our job a heck of a lot easier. So as you heard, we had those nocturnal lightning storms come through that we were all well aware of. Meanwhile, the Lookout Fire was in full force. Northwest Team 6, which is largely a Willamette or a Northwest Oregon contingent team, were in place. They were in for a firefight, and they were just doing a great job. We took a bunch of new fires, not only in the Willamette National Forest, but all over Western Oregon, which really significantly reduced crew and resource capacity. So as the team timed out, the forest asked Pacific Northwest Team 2, hey, do you have the capacity and the ability to take the Lookout Fire as well? Yep, we do. Meanwhile, can you take the Horse Creek Fire that's burning just south of 126? We could do that. And how about Pothole Fire? Yep, we could do that too. Why? Because at one point in time, we had nearly 10% of the firefighting workforce that was deployed nationally. We had a lot of capacity within our team. We had a lot of capacity and a lot of support from the region to get those critical resources needed. These fires, as you all know, you live and recreate in this land. They get established, they hold on for a long time. It's a tough piece of ground to fight fire in. It's a tough piece of ground to put our firefighters in. So we're very mindful of that. Again, from the get-go, real good leaders' intent, real good relationships. And our intent when we took all these fires, knowing that this was going to be on the landscape for a long period of time, knowing that September was right around the corner, and traditionally we have a good 4 to 6, 8 weeks left of fire season in Western Oregon, we were thinking strategically right out of the gate. So we were fortunate enough to put the Bedrock Fire in a good place. And so as a result, we're moving a lot of those resources, including caterers and communications units and showers, up to Hoodoo. And so we're going to have a base up at Hoodoo to support firefighters, get them out of McKenzie Airstrip, get them out of the smoke, and get them closer up to the work up north of here. So you'll see a lot of traffic over the course of the next days, fire traffic as well as logistic traffic. That's what they're doing. They're pre-positioning and getting ready for the long term. That said, Pacific Northwest Team 2, our last shift is Friday. So nice to meet you. Nice meeting you, and best to all of you. But in the meantime, we have another Type 1 team coming in behind us from the Great Basin. And I'd like to introduce their ICs. They're with us tonight. Tony DeMasters is the Incident Commander. And Sam Hicks is his Deputy Incident Commander. So they're here early, a couple of days, to do what was called as a shadow. And they're to get a good download, not only from us, but that same intent that we receive from the agency administrators, knowing that this fire is going to be out on the landscape for quite a time. And so they're here getting a good download, getting that information they need to ensure that continuity of operations continues. So appreciate them being here, and again, appreciate you all taking some time out tonight, Friday night, to be here. It's very important to us, and so thank you. Is it Friday? Oh, we're leaving Friday. I'm sorry. Wednesday night. Thank you for taking the time out and being here Wednesday night. Appreciate that. Thank you.
We all get tired on fires. It's just, we're not as tired as the folks who've been at it for a month and a half now, but. So we've talked to you, now you can talk to us. Do you have questions? Please raise your hand. My colleague will hold the microphone for you so we can capture it so the folks out in Facebook land can hear it later. Any questions at all? Got all these folks. Hearing none. Oh, wait, could you wait for the mic, please?
I just want to acknowledge that you folks also put out the Salmon Fire, I believe, like that started the 7th, and you haven't talked about that, and I just wanted to say, hey, there's a fire you're not talking about, so thanks you for that.
Thank you for the acknowledgement. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I know it's a lower priority as far as structures and homes, but I was wondering if there's an update on the status of the McKenzie River Trail.
That's the trail that runs along the between the highway and the river, all the way up to Clear Lake, I believe.
Portions of it are still closed. I don't know what the condition is at this point, but it's likely to be impacted.
And we have a full complement of resource advisors who are assigned to the fire, who are going out and assessing facilities as they have time on all the fires. They've been working very hard on Bedrock, and you know, as soon as we know and can pass on information about specific places, we will. But in some of those places, it's not yet safe to go there and do that assessment. So,
the question I've had from people upriver on 242 is that, are the gates manned? If they have to be evacuated and cannot return to 126, are those gates going to be open that they can evacuate?
I'm not sure who to, Sheriff.
All right, I'll put on my ODOT hat. ODOT had those gates manned for at least the first 3 days. They're not currently manned. However, they have staff at the intersection of 126 and 242. So if needed, they could certainly open that gate. Also, if we got to that point, my search and rescue crew would be involved, and they also have access to make sure that that gate's open. So,
Any others?
We got one back here, Andy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm wondering if somebody could point out more specifically on the lookout map where those spot fires are.
Sure. Can we zoom in on the lookout, please? I'm not sure if you can see where I'm pointing. I know it's a long ways away, but right, I think it's Boulder Creek is near the area, but pretty close to where the binoculars are right here, right near the highway.
Another question over there. And again, we will be hanging out if you want to ask questions in person and you don't want your voice amplified through the gymnasium, or you just want to do it face to face.
With the lookout fire, I was wondering if the containment lines, and if they all held the way you want them to, like how large of a fire are we really looking at? How large could this grow based on where you're trying to hold the line?
Well, I'm not a GIS expert by no means, but I think what's our current size? 20 some thousand 20-some thousand. So we would include this area up here that I'm pointing at would all be within it. So, you know, I would guess my WAG would say 33,000-ish in that range. But again, some expert on a computer could punch that number out for you real fast. Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, Sonny, if conditions change and we're allowed to go closer safely, we could do it and keep it smaller.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always evaluating for closer, tighter opportunities. Right now, we feel like our best probability of success is that larger opportunity out there. But as conditions change, we're certainly always evaluating different options.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Again, thank you very much for being here, and thanks to anyone who watches this far on the Facebook feed. We do have information officers who staff phone lines up to 12 hours a day. NC Web is the government website for fire information. Facebook for both Lookout and Bedrock. And so reach out if you have questions. And thanks to our presenters, and again, thanks to the Mackenzie Schools for hosting us. Good night.